Welcome to Code Report. I'm your host, Connor Hoekstra. Let's take a look at the contest that happened last week.
We had 6 contests last week, 3 from codeforces on Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, respectively. We also had the Top Coder SRM 734 contest on Wednesday evening, the LeetCode contest number 85 on Saturday evening, and the Code Chef May Cook-Off that took place on Sunday. Taking a look at the top 10 leaderboards, we're looking at the 3 for codeforces and the 1 for the Code Chef May Cook-Off. The only individual to place on multiple top 10 leaderboards was Doteria in both the codeforces round 482 and 483, but we had some top individuals placing in the Div 1 codeforces round 483, including Fade Ice that took first place, LHIC that placed 5th, 000 placing 9th, and John Cram placing 10th. And we also had Bank placing 3rd and KMJP placing 5th in the round 484. And in the Code Chef May Cook-Off, we had Yui and Natsugiri taking 5th and 10th spot respectively. Taking a look at the Top Coder and LeetCode top 10 leaderboards, for the LeetCode contest, we can see Yui and Natsugiri once again taking the number 1 and 2 spots respectively, and Petra taking the number 1 spot in the Division 1 contest. Due to codeforces round 483, we had some changes in the codeforces overall top 10 leaderboard. Fate Ice with the first place finish moved from 8th to 2nd. We had Vuv dropping from 4th to 7th, which also moved Tourist and 000 up 1 spot from 5th and 6th to 4th and 5th respectively. We had Umnik dropping from 2nd to 6th. We had Doteria moving from 10th to 8th, and we also had LHIC breaking into the top 10. The problem that we'll be covering in today's video is going to be problem 1 from the Code Chef May 2018 Cook-Off entitled Secret Recipe. The problem states, Chef and his competitor Kefa own 2 restaurants located on a straight road. The position of Chef's restaurant is X1 and the position of Kefa's restaurant is X2. Chef and Kefa found out at the same time that a bottle with a secret recipe is located on the road between their restaurants. The position of the bottle is X3. The cooks immediately started to run to the bottle. Chef runs with a speed V1 and Kefa with speed V2. Your task is to figure out who reaches the bottle first and gets the secret recipe. Of course, it is possible that both cooks reach the bottle at the same time. And note that T, the number of test cases, is going to be between 1 and 105. The positions X1, X2, and X3 of the bottle and Chef and Kefa are going to be less than 105. And also the velocities will be less than 105. So let's take a look at the examples that Code Chef gave us. So here's the input. 3 just represents the number of test cases, and then we have the inputs for 5 integers. So x1, x2, x3, v1, and v2. So if we take a look at the first example, this is what it looks like visually. We have Chef here, Kefa here, and the recipe in between them at some point. And we're also given the velocities of Chef and Kefa as well. So because both Chef and Kefa are equidistant from the recipe, but Kefa moves faster, Kefa is going to be able to get to the recipe first. If we take a look at the second example, we have Chef that's closer to the recipe, and although Kefa is still moving faster, Kefa's further away from the recipe, and so if we calculate the time that it takes for Chef and Kefa to get there, Chef will be able to get there faster. And the third example is just showing that if they both have the same speed and they're equidistant from the recipe, then they'll end up arriving at the same time. So you would output Kefa for the first solution, Chef for the second, and draw for the third problem. So the way you solve this problem is pretty straightforward. We just need to use the 2 following formulas to calculate the time for both Chef and Kefa to get to the scroll. So it's just going to be the distance divided by the speed, and we can calculate the distance by just taking the difference of the recipe and Chef, and then Kefa and the recipe. So if we calculate those times for each of the examples, you will end up with a time of 1 and half a second for Kefa, so Kefa wins the first problem, and then for the second problem we'll end up with a time of 1 second for Chef and 1.5 seconds for Kefa, so Chef wins this one. And for the third example we end up with the same time for both of them, in which case it's a draw. So it's a pretty straightforward problem. My guess is the only problem that people had was with the types that they were using. So if they were doing integer division, you might end up with a wrong answer. So as long as we're using either a float or a double, we should be fine. Or if you're in Python, it doesn't really matter. So let's take a look at our code. So here's the C++ solution. We have a function here called secret recipe that takes 5 floats, our input values x1, x2, x3, v1, and v2, and we're simply calculating the time. T1 is for chef and T2 is for kefa using the formulas that we showed previously, and then we just do some comparisons. So if chef's time T1 is less than kefa's time, we output chef, vice versa, we output kefa, and if neither of these two conditions are satisfied, we know that they must be equal. So we can just output draw. So let's take a look at the Java solution. Java is very similar. We have the same 5 inputs, this identical first line, and the only thing that's different is how we are outputting the strings. So for C++, we're using cout, and for Java, we're using system.out.println. And finally, last but not least, let's take a look at the Python solution. So here we don't need to declare the type. It will just automatically do floating point division. So we have x1 to x3 and v1 and v2. So once again, calculating t1 and t2. The if statements look slightly different, but the idea is the same, and we're just printing based on these conditionals. So the last thing to talk about is the time complexity. And for this problem, it is obviously going to be constant. Taking a look at the contest happening next week, tomorrow we have Codeforces Educational 44. That's taking place on Monday. On Wednesday, we have the start of the 9-day Hacker Earth Maze Circuits contest. I believe last week I announced that that was going to be starting yesterday on Saturday, but I believe Hacker Earth changed the start time of that week-long plus contest. On Friday from Hacker Rank, we have the World Code Sprint 13 contest. That's going to last 48 hours. And then, of course, on Saturday, we have the weekly Leak Code contest. Contest 86.
As always, if you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, hit that like button. If you want to see more, make sure to hit that subscribe button. You can follow me on Twitter for reminders 30 minutes before contests start, and you can find all of the code shown in my videos on my GitHub page. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.